Welcome to PhD&D on YouTube and the conclusion of the Moving Forth Skill Challenge series. This video slash audio podcast is going to highlight exactly how to make skill challenges more interesting and more fun for your game, and to really let you in on how they were meant to be used, even though that can be kind of unclear if you're not used to it or don't have the right resources available to you. So we're going to get started, and I will tell you first off that a great resource to have, but is not necessary, is the 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide 2. They go into detail on skill challenges in one of the sections there. It's right around page 85, I believe, and from that you can learn quite a few things. I use just a couple of tips from them there and some things that I've learned on my own to put together skill challenges that truly are fun for the players and truly do help with the role-playing aspect of a game and to move the story along. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, first thing you need to know with skill challenges is that variety is key. Skill challenges are made up of various skill checks, and with there only being a limited number of skills, you want to definitely make sure you do get a variety so that the players are not repeating skills over and over and over. You don't want each player every round saying, I'm going to make an Arcana check. I'm going to make another Arcana check, and just have it be boring and simplistic like that. You want to get away from that. So with variety being key, keep in mind that you have options outside of skill checks. You can use powers in skill challenges. You can allow them to use rituals. Perhaps you can even have them forego gold or treasure or give up healing surges to accomplish things, some type of sacrifice outside of making a simple skill check to further their progress in the skill challenge. So keep in mind the options that are outside of skill checks. Also, consider group checks versus individual, and we'll talk about that a little more detail in a little bit, but that involves everyone in the group making a check, and if the majority of them, for instance, succeed, then they get a success in the challenge. Instead of it being individual, you have them do it as a group. Or perhaps only one of them needs to succeed, but you allow the entire group to make the check. Or perhaps if any of them fail, they fail it. That's up to you. But keep in mind you can do group checks versus individual. So, now with that being said, you can use skill challenges in a variety of ways. You can use them in each part of the game. You can use skill challenges during combat to spice things up. You can use skill challenges during exploration to actually do the exploration phase. If you're not interested in having your PCs navigate the barren wasteland over a period of 3 or 4 gaming sessions, perhaps you condense that into a single skill challenge to see where they end up, and it can represent a much larger piece of time during that. And finally, you can use them during role-playing, during interactions with other individuals, diplomatic interactions, talking to crowds, anything of that sort. Feel free to put in a skill challenge there to get them to accomplish their goal. Again, that is all variety. You don't want to use the same kind over and over and over. Perhaps during combat, they have a skill challenge to disable a portal that keeps sending demon minions into the realm, and they have to either close that or deal with the dozens and dozens of minions that are coming flooding through that. And perhaps during the exploration, as I said, you decide to have them perform a skill challenge as a group to see how far they travel, where they end up, rather than spend time during your valuable sessions exploring these all at full length, which can be fun, but a lot of times, especially at higher levels, you don't want to spend your time doing that. You want to get to the story. So that can speed that up. And again, just to reiterate, during role playing, you can do skill challenges to see if they successfully get what they need from that encounter with that individual. Now, as a DM, you need to be aware of the party's skills. Be aware of what each player or each character is good at, what they're trained in, what their main couple of skills are, because once you're aware of that, you can begin to use those in interesting and fun ways. Each character during my skill challenges, approaches a skill challenge and sees it differently than all the others. And this leads to different objectives and different DCs for different players. So let's dive right into that and what I mean by that. So I have a party set up here with a wizard, a paladin, a cleric, and a rogue. They approach a room. They have a doorway on the other side of this study/laboratory that they need to get through, but the doorway is flanked by an altar with a statue behind it and just a plain statue on the other side, and there's some strange field of energy in between that they need to get through in order to get to where they need to go. So, as they approach this, I would not just say, we're going to start a skill challenge, here are your available skills, go. No, I realize that each one of them is good at something, and so I'll tell them how their character would see this approaching it. And I talked about this in Seeing Skills as a Different Light video. That video talks about each character having kind of a sixth sense. For instance, the rogue is going to see things differently. He's going to see locks around the room. He's going to notice all the little treasures and valuables that people have, while maybe the wizard in the room is noticing, oh, he's got a very nice collection of books here. I'd love to read these. He's seeing different things. So, as this party approaches this doorway, I say, wizard, the first thing you notice is this arcane energy guarding the door. You think that you've perhaps seen this type of energy before. Paladin, you are noticing these strong, sturdy statues standing, flanking the door, and you can tell that the one on the right is cracked and looks a lot weaker than the one on the left. Cleric, you notice the altar, full of religious symbols and a tome that looks vaguely familiar to you. Rogue, from your vantage point, you can see a small mechanism on the side of the altar that you think might be linked to this dilemma that your party is in. Laying that out in that fashion lets each character know exactly what they would notice first. Lets them know not what they have to do. They don't have to be railroaded into doing that, but that's the first thing they see and the first thing they're most likely to go after. The wizard is most likely to go after that energy and try to tap into it and maybe stop it. The paladin, the strong individual, whether it's the fighter, the paladin, whatever, is perhaps going to try to see what is holding this up and see if he can't break it. The cleric sees something of religious importance here and maybe can see if that's tied into anything going on in the situation. And of course, the rogue notices any mechanisms, any traps, anything that would be related to that, and quickly starts thinking in his brain, how can I take this apart? How can I use my skills to disable this thing? So I've set that up in setting the scene so that each individual knows what they would notice first. That kind of leads them nicely into the skill challenge. Next is the point of, would you rather tell them it's a skill challenge or just go into it and have them make checks? Well, I like to tell them outright and go ahead and just say, guys, this is a skill challenge. But my players know in my game that that does not mean that they are restricted to certain things. They're not restricted to just a list of available skills or abilities. They know that they can use powers and use their imagination and creativity to get by this. They just know during the skill challenge that they need to accomplish something and that there is that chance of failure if they do not do it quickly enough. And I laid out in one of the other videos the complexity tables, which tell you how many, or I laid out where to get them, how many successes you need before how many failures you need during that. So, as I said, be aware of the party's skills. Each character sees the challenge differently, and there are different DCs for different players. This is where I'm going to lose a lot of people and where a lot of people are going to disagree with me. They're going to say, that's already built into the game. Don't make the rogue's DC lower for thievery checks. He's already got a bonus, so he should be better at it. Well, correct. But I'm going to make thievery-related tasks easier for the rogue. His DCs are going to be the easy or moderate. If the wizard wants to try to use thievery checks to disable a mechanism, then it's going to be a hard DC for him. And the reason that I lay that out, yes, it's built in the bonuses, but it doesn't matter. In 4th edition, especially higher levels, wizards and everyone kind of even out at everything. You can have players, and it doesn't always happen, but a lot of their skills even out, and that does not leave anything special for anyone else. If your party's trying to maintain balance, like a lot of parties do, then a lot of them are good at everything. So I want the rogue to feel like he is the one to handle the thievery related skills. They're going to be easier for him. I want the wizard to be the one handling the arcane or arcana skills or checks, and anyone else that's specially trained in magic and has a reason to be. That's why I lower the DCs for those individuals. Now, maybe your rogue is really good at magic. That's built into his background and his stats. If that's the case, then I'm going to lower it for him as well. But if someone has absolutely no reason to be good at something other than they just have the numbers, I'm going to make it a lot harder for them to be able to figure that out. Rogues and thieves are naturally good at understanding traps. Wizards are naturally good at understanding magic. I am just making that more so by setting different DCs for different players. Each success or failure also needs to do something. Every single one of them. Each success in the challenge, something needs to happen that changes the environment or changes the situation. You can't just say, you succeed. Next. No. The wizard, for instance, is able to weaken the magical barrier guarding the door. You say that. Maybe the color of the energy field changes, or maybe it lashes out a little bit before dimming itself down. He can sense that it's growing weaker. The statues on the sides begin to crumble just a little bit more with that. Then the players know they're getting somewhere. They know something is happening. It's not just a success in the challenge. Same thing for failures. He fails his Arcana check to be able to tap into this energy. The field grows. The field, perhaps DCs even get harder. Remember, bring in that variety. It grows. Maybe it lashes out and attacks them. It becomes much bolder, much bigger. The statues perhaps become engulfed in this energy field. The situation needs to change. The rogue, for instance, if he fails his check to actually dig into that mechanism box with his thieves' tools, perhaps he breaks one in there, making the checks harder next round. And if he fails twice, maybe that cuts off all possibility of thievery checks on that mechanism. Maybe his tools are stuck in there and there's nothing more he can do. Remember that you just need to have that variety. You need to have that fun, make things happen with every check, every success, every failure. Something has to happen. Now, overall success and overall failures, they need to influence other parts of the game. Okay, so they succeed. They succeed in this challenge. The doorway opens. They get through. Well, certainly if they fail the challenge, I'm not just going to not let them through. You don't want overall failure to lead to a dead end. You never want that to happen. You always want to have some other consequences. So maybe if they succeed quite a bit, they only had one failure during the challenge, then maybe they get through and they have surprise on whoever's on the other side. Or perhaps if they were close to failure, they just get through. They just make it through. And if they fail, perhaps there's a giant burst of arcane energy hurting all of them, losing healing surges. Perhaps it sets off an alarm, so they still get through the door, but now there's an even greater challenge on the other side. You can make the next encounter harder if they fail. These are tons of examples for ways to make skill challenges much more interesting in your game. Now, you also need to make, and this is just kind of a last note, you need to make secondary skills interesting. You have your primary skills. Obviously, in this situation, thievery for the mechanism on the box, religion for the altar. You've got strength or athletics for the guy trying to break a statue, and arcana for the guy working with the actual magical field. Okay, well, we've now also got some options for secondaries. A lot of times you'll see perception or insight. So someone will be able to notice something that can give them a bonus. And that's one example. Give somebody a +2 to one of the primaries. But that can be boring if it's overused. So, for instance, the wizard decides to look around the room. He's looking around the room for something that can help give them more clues to this because he just can't figure out how to get this energy field down. Well, he does notice they're in a study, and he notices some of the books. and he notices a book similar to one on the altar. He now has grabbed the book, read it, or read the passage that has given him a clue. He shouts over to the cleric, shouts to a clue to him about something in the book, something he realizes, this is an altar of so and so. Here's a keyword. Shouts it. All of a sudden, you can bring other rules in. The cleric, you can steal a rule from D&D Next. The cleric now has advantage or on his religion checks. Now he has a +5 or a +10, or maybe it's an automatic success. Insight can also lead to things like this. Your secondary skills need to be interesting. That's what I'm saying here. If you're going to have them, don't just have them be the same thing every single time you do it. So, as a quick recap, variety is key. Use options outside of skill checks like powers or rituals. Group checks versus individual. Be aware of the party's skills. Each character should see this challenge differently. They should have different DCs to make it more interesting. And each success or failure needs to do something visibly to the players, as well as the overall success or failure needing to influence other parts of the game and never leading them to a dead end. This has been the video on how to make skill challenges that much more interesting. If you still have questions, do not be afraid to contact me. Thank you for listening to the rant, and please comment below with your experiences on skill challenges in Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition. Thank you for watching.